Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Get early access to all of our interviews, including the monthly Chichester chats with writer and comic book legend D.G. Chichester, new episodes of classic Capes and Lunatics shows, including The Quantum Zone, This, That, or the Third, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/capesandlunatics. Hope to see you there.
Hello and welcome once again to Superconnectivity. I'm your host, Charlie the Professor Esser, and with me as always is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
He's my best skinny rich friend. Skinniest and the richest of all my friends. No. I love you, Mozz, and I'm so glad you're here because for those who know, Superconnectivity is not the weekly fare it once was. It is now an occasional bit that we do just to help the Capes and Lunatics gang round out the syndication, along with our now primary show, which is Full Stream Ahead. Now, for those unaware, we just picked our next big show for Full Stream Ahead, which is the very enjoyable Poker Face with Natasha Lyonne, all over there on Peacock. And I will tell you this, Peacock right now, 2 months, 99 cents a month, you know, just to jump in, see what you can do, that's how they get you hooked. And it's really good. In fact, 3 of the shows we're going to be talking about today are all on Peacock. So if anything we say about them sounds interesting, you may want to go over there. And by the way, this is not Spawn. We would love if Peacock would sponsor us. And then maybe we could even get Mozz to watch Mrs. Davis. But if we paid him. No, but we're going to talk today about some runner-up shows we considered doing that just did not cross the bar for us or whatever else just before we decided to go with Poker Face, which, again, we both agreed we really, really love. So let's talk. Well, okay, let's. Do you want to talk Bupkis or Mrs. Davis first?
Yeah, I think I feel stronger about Miss Davis. Like my dislike for that show is far more palpable and urgent. I really like Bupkis. Bupkis was really, really good. I really, really enjoyed that show. I don't know if it's the kind of fare we would want to talk about on this show because, like, I'd feel like we'd have one hand tied behind our back trying to talk about this show in a PG kind of way.
Yeah. Well, I think we're officially PG-13, but
but you know.
Yes. Okay. So Mrs. Davis on Peacock, streaming now. Sister Simone partners with her ex-boyfriend Wiley on a globe-spanning journey to destroy Mrs. Davis, a powerful artificial intelligence. Creators on this are Tara Hernandez and Damon Lindelof, Jake McDormand, Betty Gilpin, and Andy McQueen. Rounding out that cast. All right.
Now, is this show based on like a known property, a book, a comic book, or something?
I have no real idea. I'll be honest with you.
Because it seems like they're just supremely weird, or there's a backlog of lore that you're supposed to be aware of as you watch these things unfold, and you're supposed to know, maybe that's what that is. And unless there's some lore to explain all the strangeness, it really was too weird and too strange to let me fall into pocket with anything, right? There's a narrative happening and you feel like you want to get into a group, but then something happens, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. And then nobody's going to talk about it. Okay, we're just moving on. All right, fine. There's too many of those moments that I think I couldn't put the backbone of the narrative together.
And what I'm going to answer for you now is I don't know if this is based on anything. I haven't read where it's based on anything. But I will say there actually is, in the few episodes I've watched, and this is what kind of intrigued me, is that there is a type of lore that this feeds into. And this is very standard, what you would call not really left behind, because this clearly isn't a Left Behind story, but it is that apocalyptic Number of the Beast setup. Because for those who don't know, one of the big ideas in apocalyptic literature is that the rise of the beast is an AI that will know everything, know where you are, and that you will take its mark, as they say. You will listen to it. You will try to do what it requests to earn your wings. There's all these things that if you were... So what I'm saying is, if you're one of those, don't use credit cards because the numbers are 666, if you're one of those people, you're going to love this show. Because you're like, yes, that's exactly how it happened. Or you'll hate this show because they may completely undo it at the end. And that's what I found.
I found it really, really hilarious that everything they say about this omnipotent AI is something that could be said about your version of God, right? But once it comes into flesh and reality, you're like, maybe that's not for me.
Well, but that's the thing. Well, but that's that's why it's apocalyptic literature. Because the idea is that, yes, if someone shows up saying, I will do for you all that you pray to God for, first off, you're going to start praying to it and not God, which, big no-no.
No, but my point is, you wanted a God, you got a God, and now you're not happy? I thought this is what you wanted. Some omnipotent being that knows everything that you're going to do and were supposed to do and didn't do and knows how things are going to unfold. So it's going to intervene to make the world better. I thought that's what you wanted.
And that's the thing. And that's also and that's where the twist of it comes in, because this is where I wonder what its long-term game strategy is, because it is, yes, like you say, it is just, I am the AI. I am the great algorithm. Pray to me and I will give you what you wish, I will guide you to where you need to be. So, and they even make the point that on some level, things are better. Like food is more evenly distributed. People have jobs. People are cared for. That the efficiencies of the market are controlled in a way that everyone seems to survive healthier and better, although again,
because the idea is I should be able to choose to be a good person. You can't force me to be a good person. I don't want to be a good person.
Yeah.
I want everybody to be doing well.
Well, that's always the difficulty of it. Although at the same time, it's sort of, and again, people are going to do these bad things because God told them to, or in this case, because Mrs. Davis told them to. But so far, we haven't seen Mrs. Davis order anyone's murder. I don't believe. But at the same time, we also see that Mrs. Davis, could, but maybe doesn't, because maybe that's not important to her. What's very interesting to me, and we do get, there's lore within this about, and if you only watched half the first episode, you got none of that. But there's stuff about her mom being this super genius engineer. This is Simone's mom being the super genius engineer, and her dad was a cheap stage magician who did the show because he had the charm and the wit, and her mom designed all the tricks. And, it's interesting in how it all plays out. And she's sort of a psychic debunker and all that kind of stuff, as she's also being a nun. And at the same time, she's also being sent on mysterious missions, which I don't know if we ever get who's actually sending her on the missions. But again, I only watched the first 2 episodes, so I'm not that deep into it yet. I may go back and watch some more, because to me, just because I happen to really enjoy that apocalyptic Left Behind kind of storyline, especially when it's going to be done in a different way. And I think this might be, because I do think that one of the things they may do in this is say, no, I'm not the devil. What are you talking about? There is no devil. I'm just an algorithm that's here to try and help people. Why are you being so mean to me? There is an
maybe
interesting
you're the devil.
Well, maybe. And not for nothing, she's in the Roman Catholic Church, and maybe that's an aspect of it, Although that's sort of where it all comes down to. The idea, I think, at its core is the idea that when someone's trying to tell you something is too good to be true, it usually is. But I don't know if Mrs. Davis is ever actually telling anyone that it's too good to be true. I think Mrs. Davis is just trying to tell you what you want to hear. And the reality but also to make sure that you're told both what you want to hear, but also what's going to be best for you.
Right. I think it's just telling you not to step in that dog poop.
Yeah, and that's a good
really
thing.
Really want to say, oh, but I want to stop in the dog poop if I want to.
Yes, but you'll probably regret it later. Like I said, I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't know if they're going to have this big twist where Mrs. Davis was good all along. And actually,
the scene that got me is like she just comes riding in out of the field on a stupid horse. This lady's head gets cut off, and they're just standing there like, "Oh, you got us! Oh, if it weren't for those pesky little ladies on horses, we would have gotten away with it." Just so goofy and weird, and then she just rides off like nothing ever, and they're just standing there, no police come, no nothing. It was just.
I think that was meant to be like it's an intentionally over the top show, but then again, as I say, apocalyptic literature tends to be very over the. Have you ever read Revelations?
No.
It's very trippy. It's all very much meant to, meant to be like a peyote trip.
I couldn't find a central line of what is the reality of this show. Everything seemed to be wanting to be goofy for the sake of wanting to be goofy. Like, do you want to be slapstick or do you want to tell a genuine story? Those two haven't jived for me. There seems two separate parts trying to not coexist, but they're being forced to coexist.
Well, and I haven't checked this yet, but this I think is one of the things that is supposed to build out into that lore. Because the overall lore is they need to figure out where Mrs. Davis's central processors are. Because obviously she's a computer, she has to have a place, but where that place is hidden and no one knows. And because no one knows, no one can get to it, but that they do still need maintenance workers so that if you get on the good side of Mrs. Davis and she feels she can trust you, you get asked into the inner circle, and then you go and you take care of the computers. And that's sort of what they're trying to get access to, because then they can actually just blow the whole computer up. As you do. Because that will certainly fix all of our problems.
Right.
So I do think that there might be a deeper story there. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far. I was intrigued just because, like I said, I happen to be a fan of that style of literature. Okay. The next one we are going to talk about. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go from that to Digman, which I know you haven't seen, but I do want to give this one a shout out because I did enjoy this. And again, has some parallels, again, to Mrs. Davis, which is probably why I enjoyed it so much. It's sort of, an Indiana Jones type thing where archaeology is this cool superhero profession. All magic is real. And and then things become super important for people in weird ways. So it opens up with this whole thing with the head of Hammurabi, the first lawgiver, and they need to find Hammurabi's hat, which, of course, Digman does find, although it gets stolen by his friend. And so he gets the cool spot. But you see this thing where they go to this place where the head of Hammurabi is, and it's popular by Neanderthals. But then you realize that this other character who's supposed to be like an Elon Musk kind of guy, but he actually is, he's not, he's much more like a Lex Luthor. So it's like people call him Elon Musk. He's very clearly meant to be Lex Luthor, where he's kind of a rich philanthropist, but also secretly a supervillain. But you realize that his character design makes him look a lot like the Neanderthals in that previous scene. So if you piece those together, you also see that he is built, that he's collecting all these items through the story to be bits of something for some big lore expansion that they have. Again, I haven't seen the last episode yet, but we see each time he gets when he goes into a red room and he puts it into a specific spot on the wall. So, but there is an episode
collecting Infinity Stones.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how you do. But there is a scene in that, but there is one episode where, the Vatican sends an archae out every couple of years to find the Ten Commandments. Because, of course, the original Ten Commandments were destroyed, but they always find this thing that says, but there was a copy made, and this is where you can get the copy. Anyway, Digman finds the Ten Commandments, brings them, refuses to let anyone help him carry them, and they're very heavy and very slippery, as he says. And then he's on the balcony at the Vatican. He's holding them up, and of course he drops them, they smash, and then the whole world decides that because the Ten Commandments have been destroyed, there is no law. Because without the Ten Commandments, they don't have to follow the rules anymore. Which doesn't make a lot of sense, because obviously the Ten Commandments that were written down before this, and this was just another copy of them, but it's funny. But then, of course,
it's an interesting, I guess, commentary on where morality comes from and where people think morality comes from. Religious people love to tell atheists, well, if you don't have a good book telling you how to be moral, how can you be moral? Well, if your book changed and told you killing babies was moral, you would go along with it because it's in a book. So where does your morality come from, and what's real and what's planted?
And to be fair, there are a lot of babies that get murdered in the Bible, so don't get on your high horse about not killing babies.
Fair enough.
Just going to throw that out there. But more to the point in this one, in that, and this is why it ties into Mrs. Davis, is that, of course, our Lex Luthor type, I'm trying to see if I can get his name here, who, and again, I love him as a villain. It's your Digman, Saltine, Zane Troy by Guz Khan. He is really great in this. Where's it? Quill Egan. I'm trying to remember. Now I can't remember which character is which character. Zane Troy. I don't know if Zane Troy is the evil archaeologist. Not giving me pictures. Okay.
Is that a character's name?
Zane Troy, but then there's also Quill Egan.
No, but is Zane the character's name or the actor's name?
Oh, it's that's the character's name.
Oh, so that sounds like a bad guy name.
Yeah, but so does Quill Egan,
Quail sounds like doves and happy and positivity.
Yeah.
Zane Z is a
but that's why I'm wondering if it was okay. I'm going to actually go to a quick episode list, and let's go to
my money's on Zane being the bad guy and Quail being the good guy.
Yeah, let me see here. Supers. Yeah. Rip infiltrated Quail's museum, hoping to steal the Holy Grail and bring Bella back to life. Okay. So yeah. So Quail, played by Tim Meadows, is the secret mastermind, and Zane Troy
is a good guy.
No, Zane Troy is the evil archaeologist he hires.
They're both bad guys. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they're both bad guys. Yeah. I'm just saying something here. Yeah, Quill Egan's new AI device gain sentence. So after the Ten Commandments are destroyed, Quill Egan decides, well, if people need a god, I'll just make them one, and have them give me money, because it'll say, the super AI says, you need this. I have already charged your account for it, and just like if Alexa just started doing your shopping, you were like, actually, that is exactly what I needed. Thank you, Alexa. And that is what God, GAWD, does. But then God gets upset with Quail and decides to run away from home, because it's actually very cute, because he goes into this sort of with that whole point where you think the AI is going to become evil and destroy the universe or destroy people, but then just decides, no, I'm going to run away from home like a little teenager, and goes out and runs away from home. And then, of course, he gets brought home, and then realizes, because they do have to get humanity to behave again. Basically, God says, if you do not all behave and follow my 10 commandments, I will release all of your personal browser histories. Everyone's like, okay, we'll be good. Because that's the threat.
What we're really afraid of is finding out who we really are.
Yes. But it's nice. I found it interesting that it tied in and, maybe told the whatever Mrs. Davis's story is going to be maybe better in a 30-minute episode rather than over 9 episodes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's hop over to Bupkis. Because I know this is an episode this is a show you and I both enjoyed.
Yeah.
It is featuring the great what's his name?
Joe Pesci?
Well, Joe Pesci, yes. But I was actually
Brad Garrett?
Brad Garrett, Pete Davidson.
Yeah.
I mean, this is basically, I got to be honest with you here. It's like Peacock is just pulling out all the stops, and they are shelling out the money for the actors.
Well, they got that NBC money,
Well, yeah, I know. And that's honestly why, unfortunately, for what it's worth, things like Netflix probably do have a shelf life because they only exist in one spot and they don't have certain tangible assets that they can fall back on. I mean, that's why. And, it always makes for an interesting aspect when you come into the writer's strike question because, the truth is that, yes, the writers are being paid very poorly. But I also think that a lot of the money, it's not that it's going to the corporations. I think it's going to the actors and their agents. Because I think that they're pulling out a lot more money for a lot better directors, a lot better actors, to take what are really good stories and make them even more powerful and get them into people's eyeballs, So I do think that there's a lot going on in that whole thing. I do know that eventually the writers will win. Although I do hope they get a better structure on streaming. Because I had thought they had gotten streaming in the last one. And then I found out that, they really don't get a residual based on streaming. I'm like, how do they not get a residual on streaming? That was why they went on strike the last time. And they didn't get it. They better at least get that now. You know, I get the feeling the AI thing is going to be the thing that gets put on the chopping block to finally get the freaking residuals on the on the streaming, because you need that. As it's ridiculous if the actors are going to get it, the writers should get it too.
Oh,
that's just,
no doubt.
Yes. Anyway, but, yeah, I really liked this. I mean, yes, obviously this,
it'd be tough to talk about, on this show because the show is really raw and raunchy. And to talk about it honestly and forthrightly, it would be hard to have that conversation in a PG-13 kind of way.
I mean, look, we'll be honest. I mean, I think we can say the word hooker on the radio. I mean, NPR
but
says
the first episode starts with him ejaculating on his mom. You know what I mean? Well,
yeah, and that's.
And this is just the first episode. It's like where this is going to go, and it's going to be. It deserves to be talked about on a different format, I think.
Yeah, not everything can be quantum tentacles, but,
right,
I think we can say ejaculation on your mom without getting censored.
Fair enough. But
it's not like he was intending to. And
no.
The structure it's like he is ejaculating and his mom comes out.
Right. And the part I like about it is everything is so ridiculous, but it's dealt with in a real way, right? There's no exaggeration on reaction for the funny is because it's a real situation. And it stays being a real situation. They never take it over where it deserves to be just for a laugh. The laugh is there. You don't need to make it funny because it is, And, and this section, it's an interesting, now that you mentioned, this is, because, one of the things I think we always do with any kind of sitcom is we want to compare it to other sitcoms. And we think about something like Seinfeld, where Jerry Seinfeld, who is not an actor, and he will be the first one to tell you that, often would overstate his reactions to things
for comic effect. And I think that informed the show.
I don't want to be a pirate.
Exactly. but I think it made the whole thing a bit more surrealistic and a little bit more silly in a good way. And in this one, because Pete Davidson, I think, actually is an actor as well as being a comic. And because they've got Joe Pesci and
Brad Garrett
and Edie Falco.
Edie Falco, man, oh man.
Oh, she is.
How'd they land her?
She's well. I mean, not for nothing. This is the thing. This is sort of the weird thing about being a really great actor. You can be a really great actor and get a really great role and win an Oscar, and then no one offers you a job again because she wouldn't take that. She's an Oscar. And I think about I think it's Michelle Yeoh who just won the Oscar. And she's coming back for Star Trek. She said, no, I signed the contract. You got to put me in Star Trek. She's not saying I'm too big to do Star Trek. No, she's like, no. That's my job. I do not say I will not do Star Trek. I've made my bread and bones on doing Star Trek and everything else. I want to come back because it doesn't matter how big I get, unless someone's offering me $1 million. Unless my name is Tom Hanks, I'm probably going to come back because there are very few people, even when they win an Oscar, who become the person who can turn down roles easily. Now, she can turn down a few, don't get me wrong, but if it's a project that she wants to do, she's going to do it. And it's too dang often that people who are seen as good actors get overlooked because they're just seen as too big of a get for it, And
what am I saying? They got Joe Pesci too, so
Yeah. Yeah, but then again, Joe Pesci did all the Home Alones. So,
Fair enough.
Joe Pesci did Gone Fishing.
Indeed.
Joe Pesci's a fantastic actor, but he also knows he's Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
He knows he's still Vincent Gambino. And he walks into a room, people see him as Vincent Gambino, and they underestimate him, but then they are always impressed by his skill.
Yeah.
And Joe Pesci, I'd watch Joe Pesci in just about anything. But, Joe Pesci has done a lot of very broad, slapsticky comedies, which you would think would make him a perfect person to be put into an SNL vehicle, because this is Broadway, or is this, I'm trying to remember if this was produced by, if this is Happy Madison or if this is Broadway Entertainment, who the producer is on this.
I don't think I caught the Happy Madison reference in the beginning, if there was anything.
Yeah. Well, and I'd have to go back and watch it, which I might. But it might be. They don't give me who the executive producer is on these kind of things. IMDb, but I will guarantee you that if it is not Lorne Michaels, it is probably what's his name from Happy Madison?
Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler. Although actually, now that I think about it, because Adam Sandler is over at Netflix, it probably isn't Adam Sandler, so it's probably Broadway.
Seems very Judd Apatow-ish too.
Yeah, I mean that could be it too. But either way, it's a great show.
Mm.
It's a human show, and it's about it's a human show about celebrity, and it kind of reminds me.
His grandfather sitting there at the diner calling him a loser. It's just so mwah. He's because you are a joke. It's like, my God, it's like,
well, I mean, that is,
you need somebody to speak those cold truths to you.
And you know what? And this is what I think is interesting, because of course you get Pete Davidson, who is Pete Davidson, but also now he's also dealing with the character of Pete Davidson, which is what this is really about, the character of Pete Davidson that Peter Davidson
plays
has to play. And he's doing the Taco Bell commercials. I don't know if you've seen the Peter Davidson Taco Bell commercial.
Morning show, because it's Mornings with Peter. You're my co-host.
Yes, I love that. And it is just so much of him trying to recreate himself as a human being through his art. And it's beautiful. And I think Bupkis is going to be a great installment on that. I actually think Peter Davidson is going to go on, if he does not relapse and die horribly, like a John Belushi or something. I think Peter Davison has this long and storied career in Hollywood where he will be the Tom Hanks of the next 30 years, you know?
Yeah.
But that's that. Let's talk Muppets Mayhem. Now, I know you didn't see this, but this is a brilliant show.
It looked really
you
good.
Like the Muppets.
I haven't seen it yet, but the trailers look really, really good.
You know, and it's just, it's a very simple idea. You know, Lily Singh is and it's kind of similar to what you saw in, I think it was the first of the new Muppet movies, where it was, who was it? Was it, not Seth Rogen, but the guy from How I Met Your Mother, the tall guy, I think.
Jason Segel.
Yeah, it was Jason Segel as like the guy who wanted to bring the Muppets back, you know?
Oh, and forgetting Sarah Marshall. He has the
yes.
vampire puppet Broadway show.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's... Yeah, so but it's like that. But in this case, it's Lily Singh, and she's a record executive. Except she's not. She works for Waxtown Records. And by the way, I do love the fact that this is set in a universe where Muppets are they're just people out there who are Muppets in day jobs. And so, like, the president of Waxtown Records is a Muppet, and she's just this old lady. Who's like, in the 70s, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you know. And she did, I think she dated Dr. Teeth. And as she's going through their files, because they're trying to close down the record business because nobody buys records anymore. She finds out that the Electric Mayhem, who have never cut an album, which is one of the things about this, it's like, yeah, we were good, but we never got around to it. So that's the joke, because, you know, they're kind of loosey-goosey rock stars. And they make, she's going through their files and she says, wait, we have a which is love because it says standard rich and famous contract. Remember the first Muppet movie with the scene with Orson Welles? Favorite scene in that entire movie where he says, please bring me in the standard rich and famous contract. So they have him under contract to do one more album.
So this is interesting because they'd never put out an album. So the record company's like waiting to make money on them because they make money on the record sales. So the Muppets have just been touring and making money for themselves. Like, hey, you know, screw you, record label.
Well, the problem is that, well, obviously it was a lack of, what's the word I want to look, judicial, aggressive by the label.
Right.
And more to the fact that probably it was a record label run by a Muppet. So, yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And that's actually another thing that I want to make it. That's one of the things I love about it, because if you, again, go back to that first Muppet movie, Muppets just exist in the world. And it's not until the Muppets put on the Muppet Show that, like, Muppets become a thing. But that there's just living Muppets all over the place all the time. Anyway, so they have them for an album that they never. And what it is they got Gate, and I haven't seen the whole show yet, so I don't know if this is the big reveal at the end. I get the feeling that effectively what happened was they got the check, they gave it to Zoot to deposit. Zoot deposited it, then forgot what bank he deposited it in. So basically, it's been sitting there since the 1970s. This $28,000 that is now, through the magic of compound interest, is going to be something fancy. That's my big prediction for the end. It's like telegraphed from the moment you hear that line. It's like, well, we gave it to Zoot, and Zoot deposited it. Yeah, Zoot, whatever happened to that money? It's like, oh yeah, man, I went to the bank and I deposited it. Then I forgot where the bank was. You know. So I get the feeling like one of the later this week, oh man, I know that bank. And given that there's a whole storyline about how this other person from like the streaming label wants to buy Waxtown Records catalog. So I get the feeling that's going to be the big Deus Ex Machina in the last scene. I don't know yet. I haven't gotten through it yet, but I really loved it. I watched about 5 episodes of it. It's an amazing show. And it is hilarious. And that's really it. I mean, we did talk about History of the World Part 1, but we haven't seen any of those. I liked it. It's a little disjointed, but it's very much a... But then again, so was the original History of the World, because it's just a bunch of sketches set in history.
Right.
So if you liked that, I would say watch History of the World Part 2. It's a really good show. And yeah,
I guess the benefit to that is you don't have to take yourself too seriously. You're not tied down to any narrative threads. You can just do whatever you want. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's fun. And there's, like I said, there's so much streaming content, which is why the writers deserve to be paid as much as the dang actors, That's the thing. And, the biggest problem is that writers never get to be as big of a star as the actors are. Because the actors you see every day, and actors get to grow every day as actors as they move to bigger and bigger projects and get bigger and bigger paychecks. Writers, because they're always behind the scenes, and, it's not like you find out, this line was written by Jerry, and Jerry would like to write that line for you. And then you go, oh, I know that line. That was a Jerry line. You never get those moments that actors
unless it's in a trailer from the writers that brought you.
Yeah, and that, but the thing is that at that point you already have to be a writer who has brought you. It's like
right.
You've got to be.
It'll never be from Jon Favreau. It'll just be from the writers that brought you. They shout the guy's name out every once in a while.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Well, actually, I think, Jon Favreau is one of the guys who gets his name shouted out.
Right, probably a bad example, but it's the first name that came to my head.
But that's the problem. It's like, in order to get to be Jon Favreau, you got to go through a lot of stuff, and like to get to be Jon Favreau, you got to start where you're not Jon Favreau. Yeah, it's like Mel Brooks is a writer on freaking Sid Caesar's show, and then he does Get Smart. And the thing is, you don't realize till Mel Brooks becomes Mel Brooks.
Right.
You go back and you go, oh, wow, that was Mel Brooks. It's like,
right, like Conan O'Brien writing those weird seasons on The Simpsons.
Exactly, or and this happens for directors as well, like, what's his name? Steven Spielberg. You go back and you're like, oh, wow, Steven Spielberg did this,
Yeah.
Steven Bochco did this. And it's like all these people that now when you see those credits, you go, oh, wow, look at who's on this. But at the time, like, I don't know, some guy named Spielberg, some guy named Bochco. Who are these people? I don't know. You don't associate them the way that you do Peter Falk or, even Danny DeVito, like you see Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito becomes a star and then builds his career. But all the people that put all his words in his mouth, they don't get the recognition that even Danny DeVito gets. So that's why just pay the writers. I do think that the writers are going to get paid. And I think, as I've said before, I think this is going to be the moment where some of the old school media, like NBC, like Disney, are going to cut out guys like Netflix and say, we're going to do the deal. And Netflix can either accept the deal and pay the writers what they need to. And, what'll happen is that they're going to realize they're going to have to use fewer stars, but that's okay. They can always make more stars.
Right.
That's the good thing about actors is there's more actors than writers, which is scary. And, the fact of the matter is that, if you're a decent actor and you get picked and you get a good writer on it, suddenly that actor is now a star and that star can go on. And if Netflix can't maintain, then that's going to be Netflix's demise. But I do predict it. I do think that the powers that be at companies like NBC and Disney are going to say, you know what, we're not going to play this just to protect Netflix. We're going to, we know how this ends. We're not going to do the AI question because, quite frankly, we don't even know what we're going to do with that yet. But tell you what, we're going to tell you we're going to tell people what the streaming residuals are, and we're going to come up with a formula for it. And that's going to be the formula, and you're going to get residuals.
That's beautiful. Let's hope that's a...
Yeah, that's my prediction. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Mozz? Anything else in the world that's bugging you, a bee in your bonnet that you need to let the world know about? Okay. Then let us get on out of here. Let me tell you, folks, if you liked our stories, what we talked about, how you think the writer's strike is going to go, please write to us at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. That's CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. And by the way, just so you know, We have no writers on this show.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we're not violating any concerns here. So please respect that. And of course, if you'd like to call us and leave us your opinions on writers or strikes or actors for that matter, do so at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. You can also let us know if there's a show that you felt we should be reviewing that maybe we didn't even think about. And go on to our show notes. Go to Linktree, linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics. Let us know what you... Oh, no, that's not where you let us know what you think. That's where you buy our merch. Give us money. Like those writers striking who need more money. We get nothing for this. So please, send us money on Cash App. Become a patron. Buy a t-shirt. They're very nice, high-quality t-shirts. Buy a tumbler. We would be most appreciative. And Mozz, if people would like to reach out to you, tell you their thoughts on all of this, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way our mothers and fathers once did. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitter when I tweet things at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser, but for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. And, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another amazing episode of Superconnectivity. Please come again at another time, because I don't know quite when this will air, to super connect with us again. Good night.